Syria's government has announced that it will extend the ceasefire with Kurdish fighters for 15 days. The two sides have been fighting since early January when Damascus launched an offensive to bring the Kurdish-administered region back under its control. Meanwhile, tens of thousands of protesters have marched in cities across Europe calling for the protection of Kurds. Now, in Cologne alone, 20,000 people took to the streets. They accused Syrian government troops of attacking civilians in the Kurdish-controlled areas. For more on this, we can speak with Vladimir van Vilgenborg, a freelance journalist based in Erbil, Iraq. Hello, and welcome to the program. Now, if the ceasefire is actually holding, who stands to benefit most from it?
Well, the civilians will benefit from it because the Syrian Arab Army are now approaching Kurdish majority areas. And I think there are going to be a lot of sectarian tensions and violence if the Syrian Arab Army is allowed to enter those areas. And we saw also before that when the Syrian Arab Army moved into minority areas like from Alawites and Druze, there were like thousands of people killed. So a lot of Kurds in these areas that the Syrian Arab Army is now approaching are very afraid that this army will enter their areas.
Right. And what is the situation? Try to paint a picture for us. What is the situation in areas still controlled by the SDF?
Well, I was in Syria very recently. I mean, they have a lot of issues with electricity, lack of fuel. Also, there's the town of Kobani, which is it's not possible to go there because it's completely surrounded by Syrian government forces. They are like lacking fuel, electricity. They're basically heating snow to make water, and they're running out of baby milk. And according to a local aid organization, so far 5 children have died due to harsh winter conditions because also it's snowing. And they're really worrying that they will run out of fuel and food at some point. And there are some signs that maybe an aid convoy will enter the city of Kobani, but they are in a difficult situation.
And what about Kurds living in areas that have fallen to the government? How are they being treated?
Well, most of them, they have fled outside of the government-controlled areas during the recent fightings. For instance, there were a small number of Kurds living in Raqqa and Tabqa. They mostly moved to the Hasaka province. So now there's an aid organization called the Barzani Charity Organization. They're providing support to those people in the Kurdish areas of Syria, in northern Syria. And thousands of them, they are living basically in shelters, and they have difficult conditions because also it's very cold now in Syria, and there's not a lot of electricity. There's a lack of fuel, so people don't have really ways to heat and to basically warm themselves. So the situation is very bad, especially for all those IDPs that are fleeing. And a lot of them some of them, they have fled almost 5-6 times since this conflict happened. The situation is quite dire for them.
Right, quite dire situation. What options do the Kurds still have? A bit of a tricky situation, isn't it? Since the US has withdrawn its support for Kurdish SDF fighters and is pushing for a deal with the Syrian government.
Well, I mean, the Kurds are hoping for a peaceful deal with Damascus, where the special status of the Kurdish majority areas will be recognized. And if that's not possible, there's a big chance that there's going to be clashes again between Damascus and the SDF, because we have seen so far that Damascus prefers military solutions. We saw that in Sweden, we saw that in the coast. So there's a lot of fear, and if that will happen, you will see a lot of more protests in Europe. You will see more tensions between Kurds and Syrians living in Europe. And there will be more displacement and more besiege of Kurdish civilians in those areas. And we'll have more violence. And especially in Kobani, the situation will be very dire. And there's also like a lot of risk of sectarian tensions, which I mentioned before, between Arabs and Kurds, if the Syrian army enters the Kurdish majority area. So there will be more violence and more human rights abuses.
Right. Vladimir van Vilgenborg, journalist in Erbil. Thank you.
You're welcome.